Every spring, millions of gardeners restart a relentless cycle of manual labor. You till the soil, pull the returning weeds, and pump hundreds of gallons of supplemental water into the dirt just to keep fragile annual vegetables alive through the summer heat. Historically, humans relied on hardier sources. Settlers and indigenous communities across North America harvested native, woody shrubs and perennial roots that survived brutal winters and severe droughts without a single drop of supplemental water. Those robust plants vanished from the American gardening imagination. The shift was largely economic, driven by the industrialization of seed production. No commercial supply chain profits when a single elderberry bush feeds your family for 40 years. This industrial shift trained gardeners to buy new seeds every spring. We accepted a standard of constant soil depletion, replanting, and continuous physical management as the only way to grow food. Relying entirely on annual vegetables places you on a permanent commercial treadmill. A perennial food forest using historically proven plants is a one-time biological investment that eventually manages itself. A layered food forest is a compounding biological asset. This chart maps traditional garden labor, a repeating wave of high summer effort yearly. Conversely, a perennial system requires one massive spike for initial planting. By year 3, taproots and ground covers reach stability, dropping required physical intervention near zero for decades. The central trade-off is straightforward. You are exchanging the immediate familial caloric yield of a summer tomato for delayed gratification and permanent food security. A functional food forest depends on vertical architecture. American persimmon and mulberry trees occupy the uppermost tier, reaching 50 feet and producing hundreds of pounds of fruit while building the structural roof of the system. Understory trees like pawpaw fit directly underneath. Because they evolved in the margins of deciduous forests, they thrive in the dappled, partial light filtering through the taller canopy above them. The shrub layer fills the remaining vertical gaps. Cold hardy plants like cornelian cherry and elderberry handle partial shade effectively, while acting as a vital windbreak for the interior. Wood sorrel carpets the base. These plants thrive in the darkest, driest spaces right under the tree trunks, acting as a living mulch that prevents weeds from establishing. Since these organisms live for half a century, mistakes in vertical spacing are difficult to fix. Success requires getting the intellectual design right before picking up a shovel. Perennial food forests solve difficult property constraints by matching specific plants to the conditions you already have, rather than spending thousands of dollars on chemical soil amendments. Ostrich fern thrives in saturated soil and deep shade. It turns the boggy corners of a yard where standard vegetables rot into a source of early spring fiddleheads. On the opposite extreme, rugosa rose thrives on sandy, rocky coastlines. It handles full sun, fierce winds, and poor, dry soil, while producing hips packed with 20 times the vitamin C of an orange. These species spent millennia adapting to these exact extremes. After 3 seasons in the ground, they will survive seasonal flooding or dry summer heat entirely on their own. Transforming dead zones into productive hubs requires abandoning familiar supermarket staples for highly functional, adapted crops. A mature system automates its own fertility. Nitrogen-fixing groundnut vines actively fertilize the soil while producing high-protein, edible tubers. This chart tracks the harvest window of an established system. In April, while annual beds are still bare dirt, you are already harvesting fiddleheads and nutrient-dense stinging nettle shoots to fill the spring hungry gap. By July, mulberry trees drop fruit continuously for 6 weeks. That production overlaps into August and September, when pawpaws and elderberries hit peak production. Harvests extend past the first hard frost. American persimmons ripen in late autumn, while rosehips and groundnut tubers provide fresh food through December. You secure a continuous 8-month harvest without replanting a single seed. However, the system requires the patience to wait 3 to 5 years for the plants to reach maturity. You are making a deliberate trade. You exchange the physical exhaustion of tilling and watering for the intellectual rigor of ecological design. This checklist maps the ideal candidate. Strategic optimizers, or those with heavily shaded marginal land who want long-term, low-maintenance yields, are a direct match for this system. If you rent your property, or if you demand the strict manicured aesthetic of a traditional garden, the wilder architecture of a food forest will likely be a source of frustration. You also must adapt your culinary habits. You have to learn how to ferment elderberries to neutralize their raw compounds, and wait for an American persimmon to blet into a jelly-like consistency before eating it. Organizing native perennials by canopy height and moisture needs allows the land to feed itself. Your role shifts from constant labor to intelligent seasonal harvesting.